You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Hey there, Fangirl Nation. You are listening to Fangirl Sports Network's Get My Job podcast on Believe. I am your host, Tracy Sandler, and I am so excited to be joined today by co-host of The Herd and host of the Joy Taylor Show on Fox Sports Radio, Joy Taylor. Joy talks about absorbing the role you're in while building towards the future, the importance of forgiving yourself, how opportunities could improve for women in sports, and so much more. This episode is incredible, so let's get to it. Joy, thank you so much for joining me today for Get My Job. I've been really excited about this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's jump right in. I am such an admirer of yours. We share a very close friend in MJ Acosta. So obviously, I always hear all the most wonderful things. So excited to talk about you and your journey. So if you could really start by taking us through your professional journey to this point.
Well, I started in Miami actually with MJ at Barry University. I started at the radio station there. So I was studying broadcast journalism, but I really always loved radio. And I grew up before podcasts and YouTube. So radio was, kind of the original way to be a big personality and to have opinions and space to talk. Everyone sort of gravitated to television right away that I was around in my career. And I was really interested in the radio side of things because of those reasons. I really wanted to go into the opinion side of the business over reporting or being a traditional anchor. For me, it was just something that would allow me to express my personality. And at the time, that's what radio did the most. That was the main platform to be able to do that. So I started at the sports radio, or the radio station, not the sports radio station, the radio station at Barry University, and started interning at a sports radio station in Miami, 560 WQAM.
Okay.
And I also interned for Power 96 in Miami. So I was going to school.
I'm familiar with Power 96 in Miami. I love that. Totally familiar with that.
The DJ Laz morning show.
Love that.
So I was in school. I was working at the student radio station and interning at either 560 QAM or Power 96 while I was in college. And after college, I got my first paid job, because at that time internships were not paid.
Right. It was a different time.
A part-time radio producer, I think making like $8.50 an hour in that range.
Okay.
For 560 QAM, where I had interned a few years before. And when I was there, I was doing everything. I mean, I was freelancing, writing about high school sports and covering high school sports. I was covering youth sports with MJ. Also, I was, hosting any opportunity there was to host or do any kind of event I was doing. And I eventually got a job as an executive producer on the morning show at 790 The Ticket. And when our main host left from the morning show, I got the opportunity to be the co-host of that show and did that show for several years, the Zaslow and Joy Show mornings in Miami on 790 The Ticket. When I was there, I also worked for freelance many other places, but I also worked for CBSSports.com, hosting Fantasy Football Today and a few of their other shows there as well. And 6 years ago, I got the opportunity to come out to FS1 and and audition for FS1, and I was hired to come work for the network, and I have been at FS1 ever since. I didn't do anything when I originally came here. We hadn't launched the show yet. So I was working for Fox Sports Radio, which I still work for now, on the weekends. And then my first role with the network was with Skip and Shannon on Undisputed, where I worked for 2 years. And I have been with Colin on the Herd for the last 3 years.
Fantastic. That's such a great journey. And I want to unpack a few things from it, just because you went through so many different places. And I think it's really important for our listeners to know that, because sometimes we see people in your position and the idea is, oh, there she was, she just showed up there. And you worked so hard to get to where you are. And you also wore a few different hats and got to learn so many parts of the business. And how has that helped you in your current roles?
Oh, it's helped me tremendously. When I was in college, my professors would always tell me that I need to write more. You got to write. You got
Okay.
to write. You got to write, 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 write.
Hmm.
Which none of us want to hear.
Right.
But they were correct. I don't want to say they were right. They were correct about writing.
They're right about
That
writing.
yes, you have to be able to write. You write every day in your job, whether it's just as simple as articulating an email to putting together a show rundown to putting together a rant. Writing is just very crucial, and that is kind of the backbone of our industry, I
Hmm.
believe. So that part was very huge for me. Being a producer really helped me understand everyone's role on a show. And to make a great show, I really believe you have to have excellent producers.
Hmm.
Because, it's important to have good talent, you rely so much on your producers to get you the just not just the information that you're looking for mid show, the adjustments, making sure that the guests are ready, booking guests, keeping you up to date with breaking news that's happening during the show, making sure the graphics are good. Like there's just so much that goes into a show. And when you've been a producer, you understand that. So, for
Hmm.
example, if I have this idea and I'm like, oh, I need this, I know my producer's not going to be like, poof, here's the answer. Like,
Right.
I have to give them a second to get that. You're more respectful of, the staff's time when you've been in that position, but also you understand how shows are put together and
Hmm.
how they're made. And so I've considered it really a great asset to me that I have had roles at every step and every level to understand how to put together a good show and to know, who will do a good job at what type of producer roles are open.
Hmm.
Um, so I think for me, obviously, when you get in the business, especially a business like ours, it's very easy to get discouraged if you're not in the position that you want to be in
Hmm.
because you don't feel like you're being able to shine the way that you want to shine. But I think it's important that while you're building towards and pushing towards and talking about the role that you want, that you're absorbing the experience in the role that you have, because
Hmm.
you will use the skills that you are obtaining in your current position at your next step and within your next opportunity. And a lot of times, if you get an opportunity you're not ready for,
Hmm.
then you can blow it because you weren't absorbing the experience and getting the reps and really understanding what this level of the business, whatever level you're on, what that can do to enhance you in the future.
That's so true. And it's funny because I used to work in politics and I held a couple cabinet level positions with the mayor of DC, which is obviously very different than what I do today. But from the fangirl side of it and running the company, it's invaluable because I got to learn how to be a manager and how to balance a budget and work in a budget in government. And that was invaluable experience. So that when I started this company, it wasn't just like, well, wish me luck. Let's see how this goes. But I had that experience, and in a such a I only bring it up because it's so different than what I'm doing today. But still, the experience was really important.
Yeah, it's very important, and you sometimes don't see it where you are,
Hmm.
what it is that you're learning or what it is that this particular step is supposed to be teaching you until you leave it.
Hmm.
But I think I'm a climber, so
I like it.
I'm always looking towards the future, and I very often have to remind myself, like, okay, we're working towards that. But remember, there was a time when you were only like dreaming of what you're doing now. Like,
Hmm.
so you were so far away from this not that long ago. So, remember to appreciate all the time and effort that you've put in and enjoy the experience that you've worked for while you're moving towards the next step.
I like that. That's really good advice. The enjoying the experience is really actually good life advice. Generally, it's good career advice and definitely good life advice. So, switching gears a little bit, now in your roles as co host and host, how do they differ? How do you prepare differently for the shows? Maybe there is no difference in preparation, but I would just love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, okay, so for example, today I filled in for Colin
Mm-hmm.
because he had the day off. So when I would say the prep is different. The prep
Okay.
approach is different. So I picked the topics for Herdline, and Colin, when he is hosting or when I'm hosting, pick the topics for the show.
Mm-hmm.
So you're prepping for more depending on if you're hosting or in my role co-hosting, or for example for my show on Saturday, I'm prepping for each of those topics in a different way. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say prep is the main difference for the show, because I still, even if Colin's hosting, am aware of all the topics that we're covering,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a hyper focus on whatever stories obviously that I'm going to do in my segment. So there's just a different prep approach. You know, when you're hosting the show, you sort of lead the meeting.
Right.
So, you have to present the direction you want the show to go in, what kind of prep you want, like what kind of stats that you want, what kind of research that you want. If you want a certain graphic, you've got to let the graphics team know to prepare that for the show. Those things don't just pop up in the middle of the
Just
show. They have
magically
to be,
appear.
yeah, they have to be made ahead of time. So there's just a different I guess leadership role, because I'm still prepping the same. I'm still on the same call with Colin in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the radio show, it's different, obviously, because there's no graphics, there's no TV element. So it's more just stacking the show in the order that I'd like it to go, and topics and guests, obviously, as well. So the prep approach is just a little bit different.
Very similar to podcasting in how you prep for it without the graphics, but
Yes.
it is very similar. It's actually funny. Right out of college, I worked at the NFL on Fox, and I bring that up because you say the graphics don't magically appear, and on many a Sunday, it was my job to do the Chiron. T Brady, 10 of 12, whatever it was, and I always was thinking like, are we sure this should be my job? Are we sure this is a good idea? But and it is funny though, but that's how that stuff gets done. And there's someone who does everything. And I also want to bring that up because I want our listeners to understand that. And we have a lot of people listen to the show that are just getting into the industry, that want to be in the industry. And I just think it's important to highlight all the different facets that go into it, all the different opportunities those bring, but to remember things don't just magically appear. It is a lot of hard work and a lot of prep. And I'm glad you brought up preparation, because that is, of course, one of the biggest things about what we do. Because if you're not prepared, well, then that's where you end up blowing these opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, prep is not the prep can be fun. Obviously, watching games is prep.
Yeah.
So prep can be fun, and then when you're doing a daily show, sometimes it can be a little monotonous. Obviously, everything is takes time, but when you learn how to prep for you,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone is very different, when you learn what's the best way to prep for you, then everything becomes much easier and you
Yeah.
feel more comfortable. I liken it to taking a test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were in school, if you prepare for the test, you're not nervous because you
Right.
truly know the material. You've taken the time, you've studied, you've gone over your cards or however it is you would prepare for tests. If you cram, you don't feel good about it, you're
Mm-hmm.
rushing through it, you don't feel confidence, you're probably making mistakes, and you don't do as well as you could have done. And essentially, when you're doing a live show or you're doing a daily show or you're doing a podcast or a radio show or reporter, whatever it is, you're kind of taking a verbal exam. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that everyone necessarily knows what you're supposed to say, but people know when you mess up.
Always.
So,
And are happy to tell you.
yeah, so they are lined up to tell you. And sometimes even when you're prepared, you mess up. So
Of course.
it's just a matter of you're going to feel more comfortable if you are prepared. The mess up thing to me, you're just going to mess up.
Mm-hmm.
Even through this conversation, there's been times where I'm like, I can't think of the word I want to use or whatever. It's normal throughout a conversation to not have everything that you're going to say lined up and perfect. It's the same as on air, but you'll do less of it and you won't freeze when you do mess up if you're prepared. And that I think also just comes with repetition.
It's funny. My friends will ask me if I'm doing a radio show or TV hit or whatever. They're like, "Are you nervous?" I'm like, "No, because this is what I do. Like, there's a reason I go to practice every day. There's a reason I'm doing interviews. There's a reason, I'm there all the time. So if I don't know, if there's a question someone asked me about the 49ers and I don't know it, well, then I'm really not good at my job. So it's like, but I'm prepared. That's just my life is constant preparation for
Yeah.
those things. And it does make a difference. And I just think that's another thing I want to highlight because you can't be over prepared. Because as you said, you're going to mess up anyways. We all are. We're human. It's definitely going to happen. But you want to know that you put yourself in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, you do. And also, even if you don't have the answer, you can very calmly and confidently say, I don't have the answer to that. But you'll know that you didn't have the answer to it because you didn't bother to look. It's just because maybe no one has the answer to
Maybe no,
that.
exactly. And that's totally fair. Like when I get asked all the time, when are the 49ers going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo? I'm like, well, if I knew the answer to that, I
Right.
would be in a very different pay grade,
Right.
very different situation. But I can tell you
Exactly.
when I think they're going to do it. I can tell you what the holdup is. But I think that's a very good way to put it. And yes, we're not all going to know everything, but knowing that you put yourself in the best position. I like how you said that a second ago. So let's talk a little bit about social media because if you're cool with that, because that is a world that we as women and women in sports really have to deal with in a way that I just don't think anybody else can understand, unfortunately. And I know you are really vocal about it and you're amazing, and the way that you handle people is just truly incredible. And I would love for you just to talk a little bit how you got there, how you choose to deal with it, and how you just let it roll off. And I'm sure you don't just let it roll off all the time because we're all human, but I would just love for you to talk a little bit more about
So I feel like I maybe had an early introduction to the social media trolls
that.
because of radio. So if you've done radio before, most stations, I don't know if they still have it because it's never been my favorite device, but you could text into radio stations for
Mm-hmm.
a long time, and I would call it the text machine. So we had a screen up in the radio station during the show called for the text line, and it would just be like streams of nonsense, just this anonymous people saying the worst possible things you could ever imagine, probably even more vile than Twitter because you really don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, God, to think of anything more vile than Twitter is rather upsetting.
right. And I wouldn't read it because I'm trying to host a 4-hour talk
Right.
show. I don't have time to read through this gibberish. And our program director would always be like, you guys need to read more text. And I'd be like, you come in here and read these damn texts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reading through this nonsense. And nor am I trying to read through this crap to try and find one that can actually be read on air. So, I would see it from time to time, but eventually it just like got assigned to one of our producers to like pick 3 actual sentences out of this that we could read a day, and we'll, put this on air. So I had sort of an early introduction. This was before
Mm-hmm.
Twitter became the like place that it is now, which can be a wonderful place. And it's one of my favorite places as a sports fan to be because you can really enjoy live moments in a very, interesting community.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when big fun things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter can be an amazing place, but like anything, there's a yin and a yang, and the bad part of Twitter can be very dark.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I come from the school of if someone's not willing to say it to my face, I don't really take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't consider Twitter saying something to someone's face.
It's definitely not.
and um and more than that, if I wouldn't if I wouldn't take your advice, I'm really not interested in your criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people, a lot of people that I actually take advice from, but I respect them. And if they were to give me critiques, I would respect those critiques at the same level that I would respect their advice. So that's the feedback that I'm interested in getting. Those
Mm-hmm.
people, maybe on Twitter, but that's not where they're going to give me advice or feedback. They're going to talk to me about it. So when I say all that to say, when someone says something awful to me on not just Twitter, on any social media platform, I have to take it with consideration that this is generally not a person who I really care what their opinion is. Like, I genuinely don't care. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think we as humans are designed to get this much feedback, positive or negative. We're
I
just
agree.
not designed to every time we leave the house, essentially, let's make the equivalent of that, posting something on social media for everyone to tell us how amazing we are and how beautiful we are and how they would go across 1,000 broken glass windows to say our name. Like, that's not normal. And
No.
neither is it normal to hear all the horrible things that people say on social media. So all that being said, I'm on the meaner side of things because it's just my natural bleep talking self to occasionally respond and put someone in their place. I understand that's not everyone's approach, and some people like to take the high road, which I respect. I'm not that person, but I respect that people are wired that way. My advice to people who are just starting to experience this,
Mm-hmm.
or are struggling with it, and I've had conversations with friends of mine in the business who are like, this is a lot for me, like, how do you deal with it, or what should I do? If it's too much, I think you have to establish how you're going to handle it early.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you have to stick with that forever either. You're always obligated to change anything that you want that affects your mental health or your emotional health, or just the time that you spend in the day. So
Mm-hmm.
you are allowed to adjust those rules for yourself. But I do think establishing how much input you can handle is very important, because aside from like the mean things, like I said, you don't want to follow too much into like, oh, everyone thinks I'm great either,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
because it's just not real feedback. And that is a place that you have to find that's good for you. You don't want to live on the highs, you don't want to live on the lows when it comes to social media. So if it means you don't read anything,
Mm-hmm.
Skip Bayless is notorious for, you can go check his social media now, he doesn't follow anyone, and he does not check his mentions. He does not care what you have to say because he gets paid regardless, and he's going to be on that show tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he
Fair.
is not interested in your tweets or whatever you're mad about. He has a nice life with Ernestine and their dog, and he's not checking. He does not care.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the biggest names in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can imagine people say very mean things about Skip on the internet.
Yeah.
So, that's just what he does. He does not check his mentions. Other people, Shannon sitting right across from him, very much does get involved with people on social media and
Mm-hmm.
fires back at people. So however you want to handle it, whatever makes you feel comfortable, is how you should do it. I fire back at people sometimes, not all day, every day. I have other stuff to do, but occasionally I will. If I'm seeing something that was posted of me that's like mostly negative, and it's all just people that, listen, like would trip over themselves to walk across the street and be on the same sidewalk as me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like, I can't, I've got stuff to do. I'm very busy.
Yes.
Some stuff to do today. So I'm not going to sit there and argue with those people. If it's something that is a topic I really feel strongly about, then maybe I'll get involved with it. But it's all just depending on how much time I have, what I feel like doing, and if it's like genuinely worth the time for whatever the conversation is. But it can be a vortex, and it can really affect your happiness if
Mm-hmm.
you don't establish boundaries for how you're going to approach it and how much you can absorb. But so the best advice I can give is to establish what you want to do with social media, and B, just remember, it's truly not real. Like, we're all goddesses and amazing, but like, this guy wouldn't walk across 2 miles of broken glass that was on fire just to say hello to you just because he says that. And also the
Wait,
guy
he
that
wouldn't?
he would not.
Liar. That liar.
He would not. And he's also not going to, you know, the horrible things that you're like fat and ugly and,
Mm,
look like a pig or whatever. Nobody thinks that either. So
that's very
just
true.
just try to stay somewhere in the middle.
I like the idea though, the boundaries. It's a really good way to put that, and really good when you're starting out, because you have to, like, we all have to be really honest with who we are and what we can handle and what works for our own health, happiness and mental health. And so if you know right off the bat this stuff's going to bother me, you turn off the mentions and that's it. And I do like that Twitter has kind of changed it a little bit, whereas you could tweet something, I could tweet something, and only the people we follow can respond to that tweet. So then that's not foolproof, but then at least you have some sort of boundary. But I think that's a really important thing to figure out for yourself. And I think generally with social media, figuring out your boundaries and what works best for you is really important kind of all the way around in that
Yeah.
crazy world.
Yeah. And I mean, boundaries are important for anything in life. And
Mm-hmm.
it's good to practice having boundaries. And the other thing is, don't compare yourself to how other people do it. That's why
Mm-hmm.
I use the Skip and Shannon example, because they're two of the biggest names in the business, and they handle social media completely differently. They
Mm-hmm.
both have huge followings and big platforms, and one doesn't. And it's not because like he would be affected by it. He's just genuinely like, why would I read that, good or bad, and
Mm-hmm.
let it affect me doing what I do, which is
Mm-hmm.
television?
Right.
Why would I do that? Because this person doesn't do television that's
Right.
giving me this advice, So, and however elitist that sounds, the reality is you're in this business. People will tell you how to do your job all the time. Listen,
All the
honey,
time.
you could not do my job.
Exactly. No, you cannot.
You could not do my job. I know you think you could do my job, but you could not do my job. So, and that's with all due respect, but like I've been doing this a long time. So I don't need your advice on how to do my job. So that's the input that you don't need. Get advice from people that are in the business and do a good job at your job. That's who you should be worried about.
Well, that transitions really nicely to my next question, which is what is a piece of constructive criticism that you received early? It could be early in your career, it could have been 3 weeks ago, but whatever it is that you actually found really helpful from someone you respect.
Um, I've gotten a lot of advice. I think, well, one thing that really will make you feel better and will really take your journey and your brand to the next level is to really be authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
And as women, that's very difficult to do
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many stereotypes for what we are supposed to be. And the truth of the matter is, the only way that you're going to break through in any business is by being what is uniquely you,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you're best at. And especially in this business, you don't want to get caught into a place where you're playing a character or
Mm-hmm.
playing a role, because then you always have to do that, and that's exhausting. It's like lying. Like, you've just got to commit to this lie now.
Yes.
And there's no backing off, and you got to remember what you said and all of that. We've all been caught in that scenario before. So to really don't shy away from what makes you authentically you.
Mm-hmm.
Preparation is obviously I've learned a lot just through observation and asking questions and getting tips on how to prepare for different things. And then I think the biggest thing as well is to always forgive yourself, like the messing up, like you're going to mess up. You're going to. So if you panic when you mess up, that's just going to make it worse. So just understand going in, it's like giving a big speech. If you want to nail every single word of this speech, you're going to be so nervous because you're just like, it's like so much pressure to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. The content that we're most drawn to now, just as humans, is authentic, raw content.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think naturally as people, we're like, I relate more to this than this polished version of this Stepford wife idea that
Mm-hmm.
is unachievable. So I think those three things, to how to prepare, to be prepared, be forgiving of yourself when you mess up, and to be authentic, are some pieces of advice that I've gotten and have applied, and it's really been very helpful.
How have you seen opportunities grow and change for women in the industry, and where do you think we can still improve?
I think it's changed a lot since I've started in the business. I mean, I started in the business. I started in the radio business, interning in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So, which doesn't feel that long ago, but it was a very long time ago.
I still think 2007 was like a year ago.
I know. I'm like,
Like,
it's
I
not
really
10
do.
years ago. No, it's not.
I still do. I'm like, yeah, that wasn't that long ago. It was in 2009. My friends are like, yeah, that was kind of a while ago, but okay.
Well, because to me, 1990 will always be 10 years ago.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
It's not. So,
So funny. I agree with that,
so 2007, I didn't have really a lot of women in the business to look up to, you know, there's obviously Robin Roberts, you know, there was some women in the business that have been doing it for a long time, but there wasn't a lot of visibility even for them, and not a lot of, airtime. I didn't really have any mentors. There were no women in sports radio in Miami when I started, so there was nobody I could go to for, you know, advice on the sports side. Obviously in radio there were, but not on the sports side. So, a lot of our mentors, the women around my age, were men, which is fine, but like, there's obviously a different experience there
Mm-hmm.
when you have women, and especially, Black women to look to and get advice for what you're going through. So I think the business has changed a lot in that regard, and there's a lot more access to people. So, you can reach out on social media and people will get back to you. You
Mm-hmm.
can really ask questions. I think because there was not a lot of access, and there was so few of us. Now I feel like women are much more accessible, more willing to reach back, and give opportunities or advice, or open up to the next generation, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
or other people who are trying to get into the business. So that's changed a lot. There are more opportunities, I think, for everyone in general, because there's just so many more platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It was really just radio, TV, or writing. If you wanted to get into the business, you really only could get into linear TV, radio, maybe some digital. I worked at CBS Sports,
Mm-hmm.
um, not too long ago, about 7 years ago, but it wasn't what it is now. I mean, now you can do YouTube shows, you can do podcasts, you can do digital shows, you can do, caffeine or Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, and there's more, networks. So there's just a lot more opportunities. There's even more sports being aired.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's more to cover. So I think that there's just more opportunities in general for everyone, which I think is great. As far as the opportunities specifically for women, though, I do think we have a ways to go, obviously, with pay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the top of the business, the people that make the most in our business are play by play and
Mm-hmm.
color analysts at the highest level, and those studio shows at the highest level, and opinion. Like when you look at the top of whatever any business is in the media, sports media side, those are the jobs that are going to get you into the millions in this
Mm-hmm.
business. There's not a lot of women,
Right.
if any, in
Mm-hmm.
that space. Certainly not in the main play-by-play color analyst role. There's none
Mm-hmm.
at the
Correct.
top levels in any of those teams. There are very few on the weekend shows, the weekend big pregame shows
Mm-hmm.
for college or for the NFL, some for the NBA, some for baseball, but there's very few roles for women there at the desks.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the opinion space, there's just there are not a lot of women, and they're not paid the same. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where there is still a major gap for the business, is if we're really talking about making strides in being equal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next step that I think has to close. There is those big time opportunities where the groundbreaking checks are being written. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not seeing them go to a lot of women. So that's the next step I think that we have to achieve in the business.
I could not agree with you more. Could you take us through a day in the life of Joy Taylor? And you can pick what day. It could be on the weekend when you're hosting your show. It could be when you're co-hosting, whatever, with the herd, which is obviously also your show. But, whatever day you want it to be, it could be a combo, really whatever you want. I like everybody to pick a day that they like to share. But I think it's fun kind of to hear what everybody's days look like and how much goes into it and all of the things.
Well, my day starts at 6 a.m.
Okay.
Our call usually starts around 6 or 6:15 a.m.
Okay. Are we doing, is this a weekday then?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do say tomorrow, because we have
Great.
game 6 tomorrow night.
Great. So tomorrow is a
So
Thursday.
it's a
For
Thursday.
us recording, tomorrow is a Thursday.
Yes, it's a Thursday. Well, so let's say like any day during the week where there would be a game. Like it could be
Perfect.
Thursday night football, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, this will
So,
air on Thursday, so it works out great.
okay, perfect. So we'll wake up, we'll do the conference call. Now, before COVID, we would all come into work
Okay.
to do the meeting, but now obviously we want to limit the amount of people together. So we do most of the producers and everyone on the call is remote, other than the producers that are in the building.
Okay.
With Colin, who would obviously lead the meeting. And so we'll go through the prep of the show, go over all the topics that we're going to do, whatever research we need, again, whatever graphics we need, things like that, where the guests stack the show. I get in around 7:30ish to do hair and makeup, which is an hour.
Okay.
I know I look like I woke up like this, but it's still a process.
You look amazing. When you first got on, I was like, she looks incredible.
Thank you. It is not my doing. It is professional hair and makeup. They are union. They are excellent. So I will get hair and makeup done. I'll talk to my producer during my hair and makeup time and eat breakfast during hair and makeup time. So we try to get everything, multitask always. Then I'll change and go up to the set. We do the show, obviously 3 hours. Most days, like tomorrow, I'll be done once the show's over. We don't really have like post-show meetings or anything like that.
Okay.
If we do, it'll be a quick in the hallway, like, hey, what are we doing tomorrow? So-and-so's gonna be on tomorrow. Cool. Like, let's go get lunch. It's not really like a big formal meeting.
Okay.
So I'll have, like tomorrow, I'll have a few errands to run, obviously, a couple meetings or calls throughout the day. That's generally normal for me. And I actually have a big call on Thursday that's going to take up some of my time. So things like that. And then I'll usually eat lunch. If I'm lucky, I'll sneak in a little nap. I am definitely a napper. I know I'm like, I need to get better, like pushing through and just getting a cafecito or like a Celsius or something and just pushing through. But I'm a napper. It's my self-care. I really like to like
love it.
Shut it down, just take a beat.
I would also argue that the nap is probably a little healthier than an energy drink. And I'm no doctor. I just feel like there's a chance that that's correct.
Maybe. But I also just really enjoy like turning my phone off for a second, like relaxing. I can fall asleep for a nap almost instantly.
Okay.
Because at this point I'm like very tired. So I just kind of like, I always sleep on my couch. I don't get into the bed and do the whole start the day over thing. Like just little moments, whatever I can squeeze in, 20, 30, 40, whatever. Restart the day. And then I'll usually work out. Reluctantly, but I will. And then I got to get ready for the game. So then I'll watch the game, tweet, or, if it's a really big game, I'll take some notes just on, one or two things that, I don't want to forget happened throughout the game. And then head on to bed or watch a little episode of a show if it's still early here in LA, and then go to bed and get up and do it again on Friday. So, I love it. Yeah, I'm a pretty routine person. I like to kind of like park in the same parking spot, eat the same thing for breakfast every day, get up at the same time. I kind of just eliminate decisions throughout the day. Very like, I like the Steve Jobs model. The less energy and time I have to spend on things that don't matter, like what I'm eating for breakfast or where I'm parking or what I'm wearing when I'm going to change anyway, and things like that, so that I can spend as much creative energy on the show, is my mentality.
So I have a very hard-hitting question for you, but what do you have for breakfast every day? I really get to the heart of things.
If I have bananas, I will make a shake at home before I come. I'll make a protein shake. I have like this vegan protein. I'm not a vegan, but I like the protein. Vegan protein, almond milk, banana, almond butter, and collagen powder, and then I'll mix that with some ice. Take that to work with me. If I don't have bananas, then I will eat at work, which is egg whites, avocado, and turkey sausage.
Delicious. Thank you. Breakfast is one. I don't always eat breakfast, but when I do, I like to have variety and so I like to know what people eat for breakfast, so it gives me inspiration.
Breakfast is a big meal for me. I can't do anything without breakfast.
Oh, see, there you
I
go.
am like a mean person if I don't have breakfast in the morning.
See?
How people skip breakfast, I have no idea. And I think it's because the show is so long
Yeah.
and I really don't like to eat during the show.
I think, yes, I think it would be different. My thing is I have, and now everyone's going to be like, great, thanks, Tracy. But I have before I work out in the morning and I have coffee with collagen powder and half in it. Half and half
Mhm.
is like my vice that I just will not give up. And I feel like because that gets me to lunch, but sometimes it doesn't. And I need to have breakfast. So now that shake I've committed to memory. Egg whites, avocado, and turkey sausage sounds amazing. So I feel like that's going to be a new thing for me. Look at all the things I've learned on this
Yeah,
podcast.
the shake is pretty easy because the shake really only takes like 3 minutes to make. I have that little whatever it's called, like the ninja
Uh
thing.
huh.
So it really just it does not take a long time to make, and I am like a hungry person, and it will keep me
Same.
full from breakfast until lunch, which I usually can't eat around until like 12:30.
Okay.
So, it's a good start. Obviously, it's all your nutrients and such, but it also, keeps me from being hungry. Colin, on the other hand, is like he doesn't like to eat breakfast. He doesn't like to eat a heavy breakfast. Have like a green juice, and then he's just like a grazer. Like he just like snacks throughout the show. But I don't like. I'm like I'm gonna get my makeup messed up.
Right,
Like I
that
don't
it's
want the
totally
stuff in my
different.
teeth.
I'd
Yeah.
be so worried about my teeth, though I'd be like, Colin, do I have anything in my teeth?" Like, that would be me the whole
I
time.
am like that. That's why I'm like, I don't want to eat during the show. And I just want to, feel good, feel full, and, work.
I get it, and I love it. This has been awesome. I just have been so excited to have you on the show and been so excited to talk to you, and it was really everything I dreamed about and more. So thank you so much.
Aw.
It's been amazing. I can't let you go yet though because we have to do 5 fun facts, and this is something I started with the 49ers players that we do, and they get to share like 5 things about them that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise know. But on this show, we ask everyone the same 5 questions, which has been
Oh, okay.
pretty cool because then we get to like it's just amazing how different the answers are. Obviously, if there's a fun fact you want to share, you feel free to throw it out there. It doesn't, we could have it could be 6 of fun facts. There's no one, there's no 5 fun facts police, so we can make it however we want it. But without further ado, 5 fun facts with Joy Taylor. Joy, what is your favorite moment in sports?
Um, like that I've experienced, or like my favorite memory.
Either one. It can be either one.
Uh, there's a lot of like fun ones I could pick from, and my brother hates this story, but it always pops into my mind when I think of like the time that I felt most emotional watching sports.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I want to say it was 2008,
Okay.
and the Dolphins were 2 games away from losing every game of the season.
Okay.
And it was not a good time in the Taylor household.
Fair.
And I was like very nervous that they were going to lose every game. And I didn't want that to be, a part of my brother's story. And he
Mm-hmm.
certainly didn't want it to.
Fair.
And it's just very hard when you're playing for a losing organization to go to work every day, especially when
Mm-hmm.
you're somebody who has the potential to do amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the end of the game. They have an opportunity to win it. I mean, they've been getting smoked all season. It's at home, and it's Cleo Lemons, a Greg Camarillo, and they score the touchdown and win the game, and the Dolphins don't go reverse undefeated. And I was just so like I was crying like they won the Super Bowl because it was
Mm-hmm.
just like such a relief that like, and it sounds terrible because it's like they won 1 game all season, but like it just mattered so much to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know it should be a more triumphant story, but like
No, I like that
that
story.
always comes to mind.
I like that story. And that story is like family and love and hard work. I mean, it's just like actually a great pitch for a movie. It combines family, football, love, hard work, and tears. I mean, I think we could make this and it would be great. What is your life motto?
My life motto. Hmm. I've probably thrown a bunch out there, but I think focus your energy is something that has really taken me
That.
to the next level in my life, no matter what it is that I'm doing. I had someone give me some of the best life advice that I've ever gotten, at a real transitional moment in my early in my career. And I was just, I was down bad, and I was complaining, and nothing could be fixed, and it was the end of the world. And they were like, where are you focusing your energy? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
How much of your energy are you putting towards making what you want happen for you? And I was like, I don't know, like 10%. And they were like, well, why are you surprised that what you want is not happening for you? And maybe it was like when they gave me the advice, or what was going on in my life, or just made the way they said it made sense to me. But I really think that whatever you focus your energy on, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically energy, because an energy is an all-encompassing word. It's a word that kind of scares people because it feels really like crystals and moon and stuff. But it's really about, what are you applying yourself towards?
Mm-hmm.
We've all accomplished things in our life, whether it's, becoming a mom, or it's graduating from college, or graduating from high school, or getting a scholarship, or, whatever it is that you've done, starting a business. How did you do that? You know how to do it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
apply yourself. And I think when it comes to our dreams, we think if we just like peck at it a little every once in a while, that we're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a famous John Wooden quote: never mistake activity for achievement. So don't
Mm-hmm.
stay busy, stay focused. And I think that focusing your energy is something that I always circle back to when I am procrastinating or going through something, is like, where is my energy going, and figuring out what that is bringing to me.
I love that. I really like also don't stay busy, stay focused. I think that's really fantastic advice. And it just, when it's said like that, it's so clear. You really, that, at least for me, that I really felt that. That's great. What is your go to workout?
Right now it is at home Pilates.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't really like the big machine thing. I'm not a
Hmm.
great equipment person.
Okay.
So I'm like, there's just a lot going on here, and strings and pulling, and I'm not flexible. But when I go to the gym, I'll do more. I also love boxing, but
Okay.
I've found myself when I'm like super busy and I have not gotten to my workout yet, and I'm like, all right, I want to watch another episode of Queer Eye instead of doing anything today. I will do my Pilates and watch Queer Eye, but
Perfect.
I will multitask. So the Pilates to me has been really good. It's obviously, I don't have to do anything but put down a mat,
Hmm.
and it's been good. So that's my go-to workout right now.
Love it. I'm a big Pilates fan too. Go to coffee order.
Skinny vanilla latte with almond milk.
All right. Sounds delicious. And last but not least, a book every woman should read.
I think you should read The Alchemist.
Hmm.
The Alchemist is a very, very famous book. It's one of the most famous books ever. And it's a great read. It's a great story, but it's also written in a way that when you get to the end of it, you're like, oh, this whole time you've been telling me something.
Hmm.
And it's really about a lot of what we talked about today,
Hmm.
ironically, that, we try so hard for things, and we are a very aspirational society, at least here in the United States. And we have these grand plans, and we're all capitalists, and we're all just all the time running and clawing at things. And we rarely take the time to appreciate where we are, and appreciate what we've accomplished, and appreciate the experiences and the friends and the moments. And that's really what The Alchemist is about, is appreciating the journey of what it is you're doing, rather than just focusing on the destination. And I'm very guilty of that. One moment that I definitely took a beat was Fox had the Super Bowl in Miami. I can't, the pandemic has been like 15 years. What
It
year
was
was it?
it was
2020.
2019 season, but the Super Bowl was 2020. It was our
2020.
last hurrah. It
Yes,
was really our last
it
hurrah.
was right before the apocalypse.
Mhm.
And um obviously we didn't see the impending doom,
Right.
so we were just enjoying ourselves.
Yes, and it
Um,
was a great time.
it was a great time. And it was, we had the Super Bowl, so we had the big sets, and,
Mhm.
we all went for this and bought the show there. And I went the weekend before early, and I really told myself, like, I'm gonna enjoy this experience. Like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
be present every day during the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl is a big deal in our business. Obviously, it's massive, but when you're working it, it can kind of just be a whirlwind.
Mhm.
And you don't really get a second to sit there and be like, wow, I'm at the Super Bowl. I'm covering the Super Bowl. I'm doing a show live from South Beach on this insane set,
Mhm.
doing for the Super Bowl, where I started my career, where, I went to college. So I really wanted to soak in that experience at the highest level. And I'm really glad I did. And not just because of what happened, almost immediately afterwards, but I just have such vivid memories of that whole week and
Mhm.
everything that went on, good and bad. Obviously, the start of that week, um, unfortunately, Kobe passed.
Mhm.
So, we went from being at a really high place of like getting to Miami and we're getting ready for the Super Bowl, and then to get the, worst news possible that Kobe Bryant tragically passed. And then you go into the week, like I can just remember and kind of transport myself back there at any time, because I wasn't just buzzing around and, you know, not experiencing it to its fullest. So I think there's moments in time in your life and your career where you just have to step back and allow yourself to be like, wow, I'm really doing this. Like, I worked really hard
Mhm.
for this. This is awesome. This is not where I'm going to be forever, but this experience is really cool and I earned it, and I'm going to soak it in and allow myself to be proud of myself and like enjoy this. So I think that's a book that will remind you, no matter what it is that you're doing, what business you're in, or what it is you're doing with your life, that you
Mhm.
should you should enjoy life. Like, this is what we're here for, is to experience things, and the experience is really the prize.
And it's funny you bring up that Super Bowl because that was the first Super Bowl I covered. I'd been to Super Bowls, I'd been to many of them. It's kind of networking out, but that was the first one I covered because the team I covered was in the Super Bowl. And I grew up a 49ers fan. And now I'm a beat reporter. And it's obviously now a very different relationship to the team. But I woke up on Super Bowl Sunday, like thinking about it kind of gives me chills. And I was like, somewhere my 11-year-old self is dying. And that was cool. So it's funny you brought up that Super Bowl because I have like a similar feeling to it. I even got a little bit emotional there. So there you go. But I
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
I was really emotional too, because I mean, that's where I started,
Mhm.
I was just a little squirt
It's like
down the
really
street.
full circle for you, and
It
it's
was a very full
incredible.
circle moment, yeah, and I think that's what you want to be in this business for, is for, those incredible experiences and the opportunities to cover history and be at these incredible moments,
Mhm.
that we as kids, grew up only imagining what it was like to, smell that grass,
Uh-huh.
now
True.
here you are. So yeah, I think it's important to take a second and soak those moments in.
And it's really good, life advice generally is to take those moments and be present, especially in the day and age in which we live, in which we are on our phones all the time. We can be connected to people all the time, and something happens. Oh, this was amazing. I want to post it. But for ourselves, to be able to take that moment and say, no, I kind of want to remember it. And I don't want to remember it through a post. I want to remember it. And
Yeah.
so taking those moments, I think are important.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Well, Joy, thank you so much for joining me. This was just amazing. And I know our listeners absolutely loved it. And they're going to show us they loved it by leaving a 5-star review. That would be much appreciated. You guys, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at Fangirl Sports Network. Joy, where can everybody find you?
You can follow me at Joy Taylor Talks, and also please follow the Joy Taylor Foundation as well,
Oh, absolutely.
at Joy T Foundation. But I'm Joy Taylor Talks on Twitter and Instagram, and yeah. Oh, and
Fantastic.
TikTok.
And TikTok. Oh, all of the things. I'll follow you on TikTok. I don't think I follow you on TikTok. You guys, we are brought to you by Bet Online. And with that, I will talk to everyone next week. Bye, all.
Thank you for watching Believe. You can find more great content at Believe.com. That's BLEAV.com. Do you believe?